Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And this will be my interpretation of what it looks like to have Rahu in your third house, Ketu in your ninth house. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we get into this, we first have to understand who are these entities of Rahu and Ketu. This is coming from the story of the churning of the ocean of milk. There was a great battle between the Devatas and the Asuryas. And at the time, the Devatas were looking for a solution as there were many casualties on both sides. And the solution to this was to get the amrita, or the nectar, from the churning of the ocean. But in order to churn this great ocean, the Devatas needed the help of the Asuryas. And the plan was for the Devatas to get this nectar and not the Asuryas. But as this nectar came up from the ocean, the Asuryas took it and ran. And so Lord Vishnu stepped in and helped out the Devatas by disguising himself as a beautiful woman named Mohini. And Vishnu was able to deceive the Asuryas. He charmed and enchanted them with his looks. And so through this, he was able to secretly give the amrita to the Devatas behind his back. But there was one Asurya that did not fall for this, by the name of Swarabhanu. And Swarabhanu is the entity that we now know as Rahu and Ketu. Swarabhanu disguised himself as one of the Devatas and sat between the sun and the moon. And he was able to get a drop of the amrita, but not before the sun and the moon exposed him as an impostor. And due to this, Lord Vishnu beheaded him. And usually when Lord Vishnu beheads an entity, they go off into liberation. But because Swarabhanu had taken a drop of this elixir, part of him was stuck in this incarnation cycle, while the other half of him went off into liberation. And so Ketu is the body of this entity. It is the liberated being that is all about moving towards this higher spiritual evolution. While Rahu was the head of this entity that was trapped in this reincarnating cycle of coming here into this material existence. And so Rahu represents our material incarnation. It's what brings us into this life. And so Rahu is the unresolved karma. It is the reason why we are here. It is all about our desires, our ambitions. It is all to do with the material world. Rahu is a very worldly entity, is very intellectual, is very much about this modern mundane reality that we live in. Rahu is also very unconventional and shocking. And we can see this in both of these lunar nodes of Rahu and Ketu, that they both have a destabilizing effect. But in particular, Rahu is about standing out from the crowd. It is about becoming unconventional, being rebellious, stirring up controversy. So Rahu is in the world creating this controversy, while Ketu is detached from the material world. Ketu is all about our spiritual growth and evolution. Ketu holds the secrets to our past lives. It is all about the skills, the talents that we have developed. And so Ketu is all about the talents that we naturally have. If you are gifted in an area without any kind of farmer training, something that just comes naturally to you, this is related back to Ketu. Ketu is related to our intuition, to our creativity, to our ability to tap into other worlds and dimensions. Ketu is introverted. It's about going within, where Rahu is extroverted. Although because Ketu is what we have already experienced, it also is what we are detached from. And so there's a tendency to dissociate in the area that Ketu is positioned in. So, what happens when Ketu is in your ninth house and Rahu is in your third house? Well, as always, we have to start with Ketu because Ketu is representing our past life experience. It is the root, the source of where we are coming from. So, Ketu in this ninth house is going to show a huge connection to this area of philosophy, of religion, of higher teachings, of searching for deeper meaning, travel. All of this is coming up from a past life experience. So, for many of you, you were very much religious, attached to your culture and traditions in a previous lifetime. So, with K2 in this ninth house coming into this incarnation, you are all about finding truth, about finding philosophy, and you are on a quest to find the philosophy that is true for you. And so, for many of you, you are breaking away from your family traditions. You're breaking away from the religion or the culture that you grew up in. K2 in this ninth house can create detachment from the father, especially because ninth house is very much related to the father, to gurus, mentors. And so, you also can find that you have difficulties related to teachers and guides within your life. But in particular, many of you can have detachment or separation from a father figure. You can have differences in opinions, difficulties in this area. K2 in the ninth house makes you a very restless person. Again, you are constantly seeking deeper meaning from life. So you are always on a quest, and this can be both physical or mentally. Many of you can be very much interested in traveling and exploring different cultures, different religions, and trying to find some kind of deeper meaning and understanding out of life. And so this is constantly going to have you in a state of seeking, of searching, of going on this quest. And for many of you in your early upbringing, you can be very much about your religion, about your culture, about your tradition. But as I've said before, K2 is the area that we tend to dissociate from. So many of you begin to detach from this area as you get older, and you are on this quest to find your own philosophy, to find the religion, the culture that is relevant to you. K2 in the ninth house can take you on pilgrimage. It can take you on spiritual or religious retreats. You are searching for a group, a society, a religion, a philosophy that is right for you. So again, you can find yourself traveling. You can find yourself taking breaks of trying to explore yourself, trying to understand at a deeper level, particularly when you are going through the K2 dasha. Now, also, as you are going through a K2 Mahadasha, you will find that the aspects of K2 become active. So your first and fifth house will be activated as well when you come into this K2 Mahadasha. And K2 will aspect onto your first house. So this is going to directly impact you. For many of you, there is a change in your image, in your health, in your perspective on life. Your whole life path can change through this Ketu Mahadasha. You can experience some detachment and confusion around yourself at this time as you're trying to find this deeper meaning, this deeper philosophy that is true for you. And so you don't want to get too lost in this searching and seeking. You want to be able to remain grounded within yourself as you're going through these changes. As K2 aspects onto the fifth house, you can also see some difficulties around children as well. Some of you may have difficulties with conceiving children. You may also be fostering or adopting or finding that you are having children from a different culture or a different family background that are coming into the picture. You can have difficulties around children, especially when you're going through the K2 Mahadasha as well, where there can be detachment. You can find separation between you and your children. This can sometimes cause issues related to education as well. K2 is positioned in the ninth house of higher education and aspecting onto the fifth house of education as well. So for some of you, you can find that you take breaks in education, particularly if you are going to university. You can find breaks and separation in this area. This is really trying to get you to explore your own truth once again, to find your own wisdom, your own insight that is true to you. As 𝐏2 is in the ninth house, this also makes you extremely independent. Once again, you're trying to find your way, your philosophy that is true to you. So you are extremely independent and self-reliant. You are not interested in following others' belief systems, others' way of life, and because of this, you can have difficulties around relationships. This fifth house is all about romance. And for many of you with this 𝐏2 placement, you may have some indifference to getting involved into relationships, into committing to relationships. This becomes very difficult for you because you are someone who is fiercely independent. You need your freedom. You need your ability to go your own way. So this takes us into Rahu in your third house. And Rahu in the third house is an excellent position. So you will feel this as you go into your Rahu Mahadasha, that this is an exceptionally strong position that can give you positive results in your life. Rahu in the third house can bring you success through business, through your goals and ambitions. And with this position, you can be extremely ambitious, hardworking, determined, courageous, fearless for some of you, moving in a brand new direction, breaking new ground. You are very ingenious, able to think outside of the box. You have incredible intelligence with Rahu in this third house. Rahu in the third house can also give you skills in communication, in writing, in journalism. And so these are areas that become active for you, especially as you come into the Rahu Mahadasha. This is an excellent placement for entrepreneurs for, once again, moving into this direction of independence. With Rahu in the third house, you also can be creatively gifted as well. So you can have talents in art, music, poetry, fashion. All of this can come in. Along with this, you can be exceptional when it comes to mediating situations because Rahu is in this house of communication. So you are skilled at problem solving, at working out issues, at dealing with others. And in this house, you can be very skilled at mass communication and influencing others and getting your message out into the world. You can come off as someone who is very attractive, very charming. You have a very bold, courageous personality with Rahu in this third house. Along with this, you are able to speak in a way that is persuasive, that gets the message across, that gets others on board with your cause, with your beliefs. And so you have a very attractive personality that draws others to you. However, during this Rahu Mahadasha, you can be challenged in this area of communication because once again, this is trying to get you to move into the direction of your own belief, of your own truth. And so sometimes you can find that there are misunderstandings, miscommunication, issues with being understood when trying to put your message out. And so during this Rahu Mahadasha, this becomes about opening yourself up to the world, about expressing yourself, about communicating, about relationships. Some sibling issues can also come up during the Rahu Mahadasha as well. And this can play out throughout your entire life, but this gets amplified through the Rahu Dasha, where you are having difficulties around siblings. In some cases, you can be the oldest of the siblings, or you can find that you have siblings that are relying on you. And this can take a lot of energy from you. This can be very draining, where you have a huge responsibility to your siblings. And so this can become very active during this Rahu Mahadasha, where this becomes all about being able to sort out conflicts and being able to address this issue around siblings and your connection. With Rahu in the third house, there's oftentimes a difficulty with doing things in an ordinary way. Taking on an ordinary career path can bring losses to you. So once again, this is trying to get you to move into this direction of being independent. This third house is all about courage, about initiative, about going for what you want. And so this is an area where you are meant to strive to be unique, to be independent, to be daring, to go in this brand new direction for yourself. With Rahu in the third house, you can present brand new information that's never been thought of before. You can start movements and trends with this position. Again, you are able to think outside the box. And so this is a very important area for you. As Rahu aspects onto the 11th house, the things that you do that require courage, that require being unique, that require putting your beliefs and ideas into the world can bring you wealth and support. That 11th house is all about gains. So this is an excellent position for your success. With Rahu in the third house, you do want to be careful about manipulating. Again, you have a very charming and persuasive quality to you. So depending upon how this is placed in your chart, there may be temptation to manipulate others. So you want to be cautious of this. Along with this, you want to pay close attention to your relationships. Again, you want to make sure that you are able to communicate, that you are able to be fully committed within your relationships. There can be a lot of people, especially during the Rahu Mahadasha, that are coming in, many opportunities as far as romantic partners. And so you want to make sure that you are able to commit, that you're able to be present, to communicate, because you are an extremely independent person, which can cause some disharmony within your relationships. Also, with Rahu in this third house, again, this is all about your cousins, neighbors, siblings. So you can be someone who is very protective of those closest to you, someone who puts a lot of energy and effort into your close relationships. You can also be exceptionally skilled with language. So you can be skilled in multiple languages. You can be a translator. You can be skilled in literature, in vocabulary. You can have an excellent way with words with this position.